All right, Laura, you think we're ready?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for everyone who is on virtually and also at United Water. It's great to be able to get the most amount of people here with hybrid. I know everyone's travel schedules and going from meeting to meeting is hard. And then also it's just nice to be in person too and reconnect in a individual basis, not just on the Zoom land. So thank you very much. I'm trying to pull up my, do we have an agenda to show people, or does it, what would you like to do?
Give me a minute and I'll pull it up on the screen, but I think Tony sitting here has an agenda too, so maybe you can get us started then while I pull it up.
All right, that'd be great. Tony?
So I think we did the welcome and introductions, or do we want to go around and have everybody introduce, or we can, I think we can skip that. We know almost everybody, or why don't we go around? I'm Tony Emmert with United Water Conservation District.
Good morning, I'm Mariam Brawl, United's Chief Engineer.
Robert Richardson with United Water Conservation District.
Miranda, City of Santa Clarita.
Adjourn Quiroz, United Water Conservation District.
Hi, I'm Sarah Horwath, environmental biologist with the City of Ventura.
Sawyer Carmen with Rincon Consultants.
Tom Dudley, UC Santa Barbara.
Hi, everyone. Danielle Yakinelli with Stillwater Sciences.
Nicole Jurgens with CDFW.
Hi, Rick Vasilopoulos with Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency.
Heidi Ortloff with Ventura County Resource Conservation District.
This is Katrina Pies with Kennedy Jenks Consultants.
Good morning, Celine Mimi with Ventura County Fire Department.
Good morning, Kate Furlong with the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council.
This is Desiree with the Ventura County Resource Conservation District.
Good morning, Evelina Mutkowska, Senior Stormwater Manager, Ventura County Public Works.
Heather Deanna Nichols, City of Oxnard.
Hi, everyone. Lynn Rodriguez with the Watersheds Coalition of Ventura County.
All right, Kelly Long, a Ventura County Supervisor. Did we get everybody?
Hi, Sean Kelly with the Santa Clara River Conservancy.
And Laura Schellenbarger, I'm the coordinator for the Santa Clara River Watershed. Thank you, everyone. I think that might be everyone.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for your attention to water in Ventura County. As we know, with going into the drought, it's some scary times, and ensuring that we focus on using the water that we have and using it more than 6 times if we can. So just appreciate everyone's attention on that. And with that, we're going to start off with the Santa Clara River GSA updates. We have our Fillmore Piru water meeting tonight. So if anyone is interested tonight, a very entertaining meeting will be going on. Tony, is there any highlights that you think we should mention to the group?
Chair Long, I think probably since the last time we met, the the GSA has submitted 2 annual reports that covered the 2000 and 2001 water years. So those were due April 1st. And I think this group didn't meet since March. So that took place. All the GSAs will be finishing or finished their annual updates. And in Fillmore and Piru in particular, also updated the online groundwater database. If you haven't taken a look at that, that is available on the agency's website. And there's some really fascinating information and mapping and things that are on there. That's all been updated. And tonight we're working on talking about compliance with Executive Order N722, which involves well conditioning to permitting. So that's an interesting and lively subject, and anybody who's a well owner may be interested in that discussion tonight.
Thank you. All right, our next GSA. Who would like to go up?
I didn't see anyone from Mound.
I didn't either. Yeah.
Or what about? We have a little announcement about it.
Hi, I just wanted to mention Mount and Jamie is as well one.
You guys catch that online, I hope. That the Mound Basin does have a GSA meeting today at 1 o'clock. So you can probably find that on their website, the agenda. Anyone from the upper watershed want to give an update on the GSA or Fox Canyon?
Is Santa Clarita on? And is there any update from there? I know they come into our system.
I don't think Rick could make it today, but I don't know.
I just thought I'd offer.
The other Rick had any update?
Yeah, I don't. I thought Rick Ragoots was going to be here, but I don't see him either. But I don't really deal with the GSA. He does most of that stuff.
That's it.
I don't know if anybody wants to report on, we have been successful in receiving some additional Sigma funding through the state for several of our GSAs, which is exciting.
Lynn, I can talk about that one a little bit. That's the SGM grants, Sustainable Groundwater Management grants, and that was round 1. And round 1 funding was dedicated towards the, I believe, 21 priority critical basins in the state, most of which are in the San Joaquin Valley, but we have a couple here in our coastal area, and they were listed as critical because of the threat or the ongoing seawater intrusion, and both the Oxnard Plain and the Pleasant Valley basins received $7.3 million grants for projects that will be completed by
by June 2025. Yes.
They're quick ones that were already in the design or planning and can be executed pretty quickly and get some forward progress. So that's very exciting. And I don't think we have grant agreements in place yet. Those usually take a while, but we have projects set up. I don't know, do we have time, Chair Long, for Miriam to, Miriam can probably give us a little bit of a list quickly of the projects that are going to be grant funded. Would the group be interested in hearing that?
I think you're muted.
If we can do it in 4 minutes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do my best.
I thought people would chuckle on that.
As part of the SGM grant, there were actually 2 activities that took place. One was the new projects were adopted in the Oxnard Pleasant Valley GSP, and the other one was kind of collaborating among agencies to provide a list of proposed projects. So on the Oxnard Plain, we had a few projects, and I can just run through the United projects and FCGMA project. One project that has been recommended for receiving a grant award is the Freeman Diversion Conveyance System Upgrade. The second one is the PTP Laguna Road Recycled Water. The third one is installation of monitoring wells along Oxnard Plain to support the extraction barrier and brackish water treatment project that is coming up in the future. Then FCGMA was also recommended for a grant for installing a few monitoring wells that would help with water quality monitoring and also seawater intrusion abatement. I believe Camarillo also received or got support for one project. Unfortunately, I don't remember that. Do you remember?
That one's
Tony?
recycle water storage improvement. isn't
Recycle
it?
water storage. And on the Pleasant Valley, I know that Pleasant Valley County Water District was also recommended for a grant funding to advance their recycled water pipeline that would connect Conejo Creek to their system. And there were some other projects that unfortunately I don't remember, but these are the projects that I just remember from the top of my head.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to note that some of those projects, the Fox Canyon ones, I believe Kim Loeb, Fox Canyon groundwater manager, gave a presentation on at this meeting. I think it was the January meeting. So a list of those projects and several of those that he presented on were on the list for recommended funding as well. If anybody wants to try to find more information, that meeting is recorded and presentation slides on our website.
Great. And, thank you to everyone for really working on those grants to get money into Ventura County that we desperately need for our water system. So thank you. Any other on the Santa Clara River GSA updates? Because if not, we'll move to the iron magnesium treatment project. And we have Adrian's here.
Yes, he is.
All right, thank you. Welcome. Take it away when you want.
Just kind of turning on my mic.
Sorry, we're just having a little trouble sharing the right presentation.
Is that the right one?
While that's being done, I just wanted to point out, I just posted in the chat the link to the projects that were funded under that grant. So you can see Fox Canyon is on that list.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Yeah.
All right, you're good to go.
Can you, yes. Right, looks like we're ready to go.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, good morning, Santa Clara River Watershed Committee members. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to share United Water Conservation District's iron and manganese removal plant drought resiliency project. My name is Adjourn Quiros. I'm an associate engineer with United Water, and I'm the deputy project manager on the project. Before we get into the presentation, I wanted to highlight and thank our funding partner agencies, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the California Department of Water Resources, the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, and of course, the Watersheds Coalition of Ventura County, who was an early supporter of the project. All right, so what is the Oxnard-Hueneme pipeline, also known as the OH pipeline? This is a pipeline that spans from the El Rio facility down to the naval bases in Ventura County. The pipeline is 8 miles long and includes a 4-mile lateral known as the Magoo lateral. The pipeline delivers waters to the city of Oxnard, Port Hueneme Water Agency, 4 mutual water companies, as well as the El Rio School District. The pipeline serves 227,000 residents, and in 2020, delivered 14,000 acre feet of water. The water originates at the El Rio Water Treatment Plant and Groundwater Recharge Facility. The facility consists of 80 acres of spreading ponds in which water from our Freeman diversion is spread for groundwater recharge. The facility is also equipped with 12 water supply wells, 9 of which are located on site and draw water from the upper aquifer system. The other 3 are located off-site and draw water from the lower aquifer system. The new iron and manganese treatment plant will be located adjacent to Clearwell 2 and on the south side of Pond 8 here on site. So I mentioned that this is a drought resiliency project. This figure depicts our 12 water supply wells. The 9 upper aquifer system wells are represented up here, and these draw water from the Oxnard and Magoo aquifers. The lower aquifer system wells are here, here, and here, and these draw water from the Hueneme and Fox Canyon aquifers. The upper aquifer system contains nitrate concentrations that are low during wet periods and high during periods of extended drought. The lower aquifer system, although it contains negligible nitrate concentrations, contains naturally occurring iron and manganese. In 2011, the groundwater table was 65 feet above sea level. After several consecutive years of drought in 2018, the groundwater table dropped to 40 feet below sea level. This is more than a 100-foot drop in the groundwater table. During these times of drought, we see elevated nitrate concentrations in the upper aquifer system. The drop in the groundwater table also results in a loss in production capacity. In order to mitigate these issues, the district utilizes the lower aquifer system wells to blend water with the upper aquifer system. This ensures that our product water is delivered below the nitrate MCL of 10 milligrams per liter. However, this water does contain iron and manganese. Iron and manganese are secondary level contaminants, and it's important to note that manganese may become a primary level contaminant in the near future. These conditions create the need for iron and manganese removal. All right, this is a basic process diagram which illustrates the water treatment process at the El Rio facility. The blue shapes represent the existing infrastructure, while the red shapes represent the new infrastructure that's part of the iron and manganese project. The district prioritizes the use of the upper aquifer system wells, and that's to minimize energy costs. Water from these wells is conveyed through a common manifold where it's dosed with gaseous chlorine prior to entering our clear wells. The district owns 2 clear wells that contain 8 million gallons of water each. After water serpentines through the clear wells, it's dosed again with gaseous chlorine and ammonia to form chloramines, which serves as a disinfectant. Water is then boosted to 62 PSI and delivered out the OH pipeline. As I mentioned, during periods where we see elevated nitrate concentrations, we are obligated, or we're forced to blend with the lower aquifer system water so that our product water is delivered below the nitrate MCL. However, the water will contain iron and manganese. With the addition of the new iron and manganese treatment plant, however, we'll be able to continue to blend water to significantly reduce nitrate concentrations, while at the same time removing iron and manganese to non-detect levels. Therefore, this is not just a drought resiliency project, but also a water quality project. So how is iron and manganese removed? Iron and manganese is typically removed through granular filter media filtration. Iron is removed through oxidation, precipitation, and filtration. Manganese is removed via oxidation and adsorption onto the surface of the filter media. In 2016, we piloted 2 alternatives for filter media. One was Lanox, which is a proprietary product, and the other is Green Sand Plus with an anthracite cap. Oops. We selected Green Sand Plus with the anthracite cap because this produced the water with the lower silt density index, and this prevents the fouling of reverse osmosis membranes at water treatment plants downstream of ours. The way the treatment works, this is a cross-section of our filter vessels. These are 12 foot in diameter and 40 foot long, and the project includes 2 of these. Water enters through an inlet manifold, filters through 27 inches of anthracite, 15 inches of Green Sand Plus, and 16 inches of gravel. Water is then collected through these laterals and then conveyed to the outlet manifold. Project location, this is an aerial image of the El Rio facility, and this is Rose Avenue here. The iron and manganese plant is located here on the south side of Pond 8, adjacent to our disinfection building. These are the 2 clear wells that I mentioned earlier that contain 8 million gallons of water each. And this is our booster plant station that boosts water to 62 PSI prior to delivering to the OH pipeline. This is a 3D rendering image of the new treatment plant. The treatment plant is capable of treating up to 3,500 gallons per minute of water. And this is equivalent to the capacity of our highest producing well in the lower aquifer system. There are provisions in the project, however, to expand our capacity to 8,500 gallons per minute in the future. And this would be equivalent to the total capacity of our lower aquifer system wells. So let's walk through some of the main features of the plant. We are building a new 900 square foot building that will house a wet sample lab, electrical equipment, as well as our blower equipment. As I mentioned, there will be 2 40 foot long, 12 foot diameter filter vessels. These will be equipped with an elevated catwalk, which will allow our operators to safely access the filter vessels to inspect, maintain, and operate. We'll have a waste solids disposal pump station that will be emptied on an as-needed basis via vacuum truck. We also have a filter drain pump station that's 12 feet in diameter, 24 feet deep, and will hold.
Oh, can you hear me? All right, now I'm.
If everyone could make sure we mute our computers, that would be fabulous. Thank you. Sorry. And Adrian, we cannot hear you. I think the mic is muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the filter drain pump station will be used to partially drain the filter vessels prior to the backwash process. The water that's used in the backwash process will be collected in this wash water recovery tank. This is a 42-foot diameter tank that's 25.5 feet tall at the sidewalls and will contain up to 195,000 gallons of water. When the used backwash water collects in this tank, the solids will be allowed to settle and eventually will be conveyed to the waste solids disposal pump station for later removal. The decanted water will be recirculated into the filtration process. So we essentially recycle our backwash water, which will result in an additional 10% capacity for the plant. All right, onto some photos of construction progress. This is another aerial image of the El Rio facility. However, in contrast to the latest or the last image, you see an active construction site here at the iron and manganese plant site. There's also extensive trenching going on here adjacent to Rose Avenue, and that's for our new backwash supply line. Well, groundbreaking took place on December 2nd, 2021, beginning with the grading activity. So in order to create space for the new plant, we had to borrow 20,000 cubic yards of material in our existing ponds and fill this new area. In this particular instance, this excavator is digging out the keyway, and this is so that the new fill is interlocked or keyed into the existing slope. Fast forward to January, the grading operation or the rough grading operation was substantially complete. As I mentioned, 20,000 cubic yards of material to fill this area to make room for the new plant. This excavator here is equipped with a 4 cubic yard bucket. So if you do the math, that's about 5,000 scoops of material to fill this entire area. So that's a lot of dirt. In addition to grading, we also conducted an extensive potholing operation. What potholing is digging to physically verify the location and depth of existing utilities. And you do this prior to installing any new utilities. And this is important so that you minimize the risk of unintentionally damaging existing utilities which would result in a disruption to operations and consequently a disruption to our water deliveries. In this project, we conducted about 100 potholes. So this is what the site looked like for a couple months. And these occur at all the crossings between between existing and proposed utilities. This is the filter drain pump station that I mentioned earlier. Again, 24 feet deep, 12 foot in diameter, 11,000 gallons. And this is constructed out of precast concrete. The way this is built is you stack sections of precast concrete that range between 18 and 30 inches in height. And you seal them with a rubber gasket at the joints and then an outer layer of grout. The project also includes a 4-inch solids line or sewer line. The original intent for this pipeline was to convey the waste solids of the backwash process to the county sewer system. However, this was not permittable, so the pipeline will now only discharge waste streams from the lab, from the analyzers, to the county sewer system. The pipeline is constructed out of 4-inch HDPE, and you see the welder here, or the worker here, welding 2 sticks of pipe together using high temperature and pressure application. And this is a concrete pour for the new building. You'll see the concrete truck here. This is called a boom pump, and the boom pump pumps the concrete for the workers to place. Again, the building will include a new lab, an electrical room, and a room to house our air blowers. Of course, there's unforeseen situations in construction that can be very disruptive. Back on March 28th, we were forecasted to receive about 1 inch of rain. However, the El Rio area received somewhere between 2 and 3 inches of rain. The contractor had planned to pour this equipment pad here and also to pour concrete in this trench to encase a pipe. However, due to the extensive damage, so a lot of mud, this trench caved in, there was a lot of stormwater in the trench. So the contractor had to spend 2 to 3 days cleaning this mess up prior to being able to conduct their pour. So a lesson learned here is better planning when there's inclement weather in the forecast. You never know what Mother Nature has in store for you. Another major element of this project is the backwash supply line. This is an 860-foot long pipeline that's built out of 20-inch ductile iron pipe. On the right here is what's called the hot tap operation. What a hot tap is a method of installing a new lateral on an existing pipeline without having to shut down the pipeline. In this case, we tapped into the OH pipeline to supply water for our backwash process. On this particular day, we had equipment and staff on hand just in the event that something went wrong and the OH pipeline started to leak. We also notified stakeholders that there would be a minimal risk of a shutdown. However, we're happy to report that the operation went on successfully, thanks to best practices and proper planning. And on the left is an aerial image of the backwash supply alignment as it approaches the OH pipeline where the hot tap was later conducted. These are images of our filter vessels up at the manufacturing plant in Tualatin, Oregon. If anybody knows where that is, it's in the greater Portland area. The image on the left is the shell of the filter vessel after undergoing a 5-day sandblasting process. On the right are the filter vessels after undergoing the coating application. The filter vessels receive 3 coats of paint on the interior and 2 coats on the exterior. And this is the vertical construction of the building walls. The walls are made out of cement masonry unit blocks, also known as CMU blocks. The way it works is blocks are brought up in 5-foot lifts, and then grout is poured inside of the cells, and then another 5-foot lift of block is added, and so on. This particular building was built in 3 lifts. And this photo was 2 to 3 weeks ago, or in early May. And this is a flash forward photo when the walls were completed. The entire duration of the wall construction was about 2.5 weeks. So the filter vessels that I mentioned earlier weigh approximately 32 tons unloaded, and then 267 tons when they're loaded with concrete and filter media. So obviously they require a very robust foundation to sit on. So this is the concrete pour for the filter vessel foundation. Due to its large size, the slab was poured in, or will be poured in 3 sections. The slab is 75 feet long, 55 feet wide, 1 foot thick throughout the center, and 2 feet thick around the edges. The filter vessels will sit on these pedestals here in this direction. Project timeline. So I'll hit on some of the major milestones for this project. The project began in late 2015 with a feasibility study and pilot testing to determine our preferred filter media. In late 2017, we issued an RFP and awarded a contract to Kennedy Jenks Consultants for the design of the project. We also conducted another round of pilot testing to determine some operational parameters. In 2018, we applied for and received a U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart grant for the amount of $300,000. I did not mention that our regulator is the Division of Drinking Water, and they were engaged throughout the design process through regular workshops. In 2020, we applied for and received DWR Prop 1 IRWM grant funding for $2.5 million. In 2021, we issued an RFP and awarded a contract to HDR Engineering for construction management and inspection services. At the same time, we also went out to bid for a construction contractor. The low bidder was GSE Construction out of Livermore, California, and we awarded them a contract in August 2021. Also in 2021, we applied for and received a Department of Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant for $4.23 million. This brought on a quite unusual situation as the grant was awarded after the construction contract was awarded. So the conditions of the grant had to be implemented into the construction contract via change order. One of the major conditions of the grant was that the project be compliant with the Buy American Act. This means that a lot of the major equipment and material on the project has to be domestic or American made. This resulted in a change order of approximately $500,000 for the additional material costs. However, due to the multiple funding streams, this cost was offset. Currently, the construction is on track to be completed by January 2023, but we're optimistic that it can be done sooner. At this time, it's estimated that the total project cost will be $12.5 million, and $10.3 million of that is construction cost. However, again, thanks to our efforts and thanks to our funding partners, we received approximately $7 million in grants, which will offset 67% of the construction costs, so relieving a significant burden off of our stakeholders. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Adrian. Is there any questions from the audience at United? Are there any questions from those online right now? Just raise your hand or unmute and you can ask.
It was a very thorough presentation, so I think that it leaves very little to questions. But I think this is a really great project and glad to see an update and that it's almost near completion after being funded initially and come to this group through our discussions in preparation for the IRWM grant round 1. So it's really nice to see a project on the ground, almost completed, and already serving the community, or getting close to serving the community. So
one additional comment on this, that it is really a nice thing for some of the mutuals that are served by this system. We've got a couple big customers in Port Hueneme Water Agency and the city of Oxnard, but there are several mutuals that are older, and they are definitely disadvantaged communities. And so the IRWM grant and the Defense Communities grant both really helped to offset the cost to those mutuals, because I know they're struggling with basic things like getting their bills paid and meters and their distribution system. So they don't need another problem and a rate increase for water quality and drought resiliency. So this really helps a lot with those mutuals that are served by this system.
Yes, and we had a question from Heather Miranda. Are there any other pollutants that will be treated by default with this location? With this?
Are there any other, one more time, sorry?
Any other pollutants? Like you have nitrogen and iron. Is there anything else that will be able to be captured by default?
Yeah, this process is specific to iron and manganese removal.
Manganese,
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the question on that. Anything else? I hope that answers your question. All right, well, Adrian, thank you so much. It's exciting, and hopefully you'll all invite us when it's complete. And so we can celebrate the project being done.
Absolutely, you can count on that.
Wonderful. Oh, and when do you think that will be complete? I mean, might as well ask. Maybe
we're on track to be completed by January 2023.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next we have is the Ventura County Resource Conservation District and Restoration Partners Project Update. I believe we have Jamie Whiteford here today.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Let me get out of this view and I'm going to share my screen. All right, can everybody see my slides okay?
Yeah, it shows up fine, Jamie.
Looks
Thank you
great.
so much. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate that. Okay, well, first thing I want to do is thank Adrian for that presentation. It's really nice to see these large scale, critically important projects moving forward. So thank you for that update, Adrian. And we're going to kind of switch a little bit of gears here and talk about a variety of sort of dispersed and smaller projects, which, you know, in lump sum will hopefully be able to achieve substantial improvements for the Santa Clara River watershed, much like these larger collection projects as well. So my name is Jamie Whiteford. I want to thank Laura and the Watershed Committee for giving us an opportunity to provide an update to stakeholders about activities of the Ventura County Resource Conservation District, and in particular our partners, because our projects really rely on partnerships. And so we really want to showcase that, and hopefully everyone will be a little bit more familiar about all the different activities and efforts that the district is involved in throughout the watershed. So I'll start with a little bit about myself. My name is Jamie Whiteford. I'm district scientist here at the Ventura County Resource Conservation District. I'm a program and project manager. My focus typically is in agriculture related research, restoration, and conservation projects, although I do a little bit of everything, as does pretty much all of our staff here at the district. On this slide, you'll also see a bit of the topics I hope to cover for you today. We're gonna, again, discuss a bunch of different efforts that we're involved in throughout the watershed. So I'll start with a little bit about the district in case you're unfamiliar with our organization. So our mission is to collaborate with landowners, government agencies, and willing partners to facilitate the conservation and restoration of Ventura County's natural resources for current and future generations. So in following with that mission, the district is actually one of about 100 statewide resource conservation districts. We are part of an association of districts called the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts. As a district, we're actually a local special district. And what that means is that we do have a geographic sphere of influence, and that sort of geographically delineated range that we work within pretty much mirrors that of Ventura County's borders, although there are certain areas that are sort of carved out, which doesn't mean that we can't work in those areas, but it means that that area is within the jurisdiction of perhaps another district or a municipality, in which case we would seek partnerships and an MOU or some kind of documentation that allows us to work in those areas. We are a legal subdivision of the state of California, which simply means that to other state organizations, we're recognized as another state agency, but we're not supported by state funds. So the majority of our funds are derived from grants and also from support, for example, from the Ventura County Board of Supervisors. We were established and we operate pursuant Division 9 of the Public Resources Code, Section 9001 at CQ. So, you know, we've been around quite a while and we've been legislatively recognized with some level of authority. And in fact, our roots come from the Simi Valley Soil Conservation District. So we've been around about 80 years. We started out as that Simi Valley Soil Conservation District back in the 40s. And then through consolidations and sort of name changes, et cetera, we ended up as a Ventura County Resource Conservation District in 1978. Now, through all that time, consolidations and other changes, realistically, our priorities haven't changed. Our focus is on natural resource conservation. So you can see at the bottom of this slide, there's a list of strategic priorities. These are our current lists, but these have always been a focus of our organization. And so what we're going to discuss today are some of the efforts that we're involved in to follow these strategic priorities and also benefit stakeholders in the Santa Clara River watershed, but then also, again, we have other projects in other watersheds as well. And so with that, I want to open the floor to some guest speakers. We kind of have a hybrid format today. I'm here in Somis in our beautiful office. I believe Tom Dudley is going to present the next set of slides regarding Arundel efforts is there actually on site. And then I've got some other colleagues who are going to be presenting who are sort of dispersed in other places as well. So with that, Tom, are you available and ready to direct me through the next set of slides?
Yeah, sure. Now, first of all, Laura, do I have to hold this button down all the time or what's the deal?
Hey, Tom, you're looking good.
It seems to keep flipping there. Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, I'm going to talk about both some finer scale and a larger scale program that we've got, all of them rotating around the notion of dealing with invasive Arundodonax giant reed that everybody is very familiar with by now, I'm sure. So first of all, I wanted to talk about a project that we're doing in collaboration with the RCD, as well as Stillwater Sciences, Western Foundation for Vertebrate Zoology, to do arundo control and restoration efforts in association with the area around the Freeman Diversion Dam. And you can see the dam in the middle of this picture there. That kind of creates the center point for this project. So if we go to next slide, Jamie. So this project location is way down the lower part of the watershed. And I refer to it sort of as the Saticoy project because it's adjacent to town of Saticoy. A lot of our work is on the Lloyd Butler family ranch. And in particular, we have a state coastal conservancy grant that just started a couple months ago that is to do arundo removal on a portion of their property. Next slide. We'll give a little more of a geographic framing. So the area in red is the area where we're going to be working for the next couple of years or so. And I wanted to make the point that this actually tied into a larger scale program, which we refer to as the Santa Paula to Sespe Conservation Area, referring to the two major tributaries that come in between Saticoy and essentially the Fillmore, and the Sespe Cienega is the area that forms the upper portion of this operation area, and where we're going to be working on these projects, again, the area in red, sort of forms a downstream anchor of the SP to Sespe, as referred to it. This has been approved by the state water, what are the SCRWP? Oh, well, it's the water, what is wetland recovery plan? There are too many WRPs around. It was approved a couple of years ago as a plan for the Southern California program, which essentially gives us kind of a go-ahead to say it's been vetted through state agencies to say it fits their mandates for both biodiversity protection and for ecosystem services such as wildfire reduction and water conservation. As some of you know, Arundo uses roughly 3 times as much water in evapotranspiration as the native vegetation does. Next. Jamie? Jimmy, want to go to the next slide there?
I'm trying.
Oh, okay. I'll also know while we're waiting for that, that we're actually
There we go.
partnering with United Water and with the Nature Conservancy. Their largest property is also in this area, as shown in this slide. The green areas are the Lloyd Butler Ranch properties. The pink area to the north is actually Limonera property, but the Nature Conservancy acquired a couple years ago a conservation easement for that area north of the river. You can see United properties in blue there. And then again, the green on the south side is Lloyd Butler property. And then the brown area is the Nature Conservancy Hanson Villanueva, which is their largest property on the river and which will be one of their primary centers for public visitation as well. So the idea is that we divided this zone, this section of the river, into subsections where we initiate some of the work. And this immediate project that we're just starting on now is in what is noted there as Zone 3. So it actually includes or right up almost to the base of the Freeman Diversion Dam, which is the little blue section there. Anyway, okay, next one. So before getting started, our initial efforts are going to be to go into areas where there is good native habitat already, all of which is invaded to greater or lesser degree by arundo. The idea of starting in the areas where arundo is mixed in with natives is that we can get that stuff out of there before it becomes more dominant and threatens the existing good habitat. And might note that that section 29 up in the corner, technically United property, that was actually the last known nesting site of the southwestern willow flycatcher. And this area does have a lot of high quality biodiversity that we are mandated to essentially improve habitat for a whole range of listed species. So let's see, I don't need to go into much other detail here other than to say that the lighter green patches there are areas that are denser arundo that we will be dealing with at a later stage of the program. And within this area and the large area, as I think in the next slide shows, Jamie. Oops. No, I'll just stick with this. So this is nested within a larger program. We're starting on a Wildlife Conservation Board planning grant that is to cover a larger area of the river, actually about a 6-mile section of the river that goes from below the Saticoy Bridge, LA Avenue Bridge, up to and including the portion of the Nature Conservancy property. So for the next year, we'll be doing the planning operation, which is essentially documenting all the characteristics of the site, and then putting together a restoration plan that will be implemented over the next 3-4 years or so in that 6-mile section of the river. So fairly large scale program. This just gives you a little bit more of a picture of what the vegetation types that we're dealing with, that native dominant areas where we're really focusing on getting arundo out first, because one of the real concerns is that arundo being so flammable, if it catches on fire, and there have been many fires in this portion of the river valley, it can kill off the native vegetation, the cottonwoods and willows that simply don't tolerate fire within their stands. So we have native dominant, then the mixed area shown on the right there, where that's where we'll be putting the effort, but it also includes areas, like I mentioned, that are arundo dominant, and that's where we need to go in with the larger equipment. At this stage, we're not doing that. We're focusing on hand treatment, and then dealing with some actual aquatic habitat within this section as well. The groundwater is quite close to the surface, in part driven by the Freeman Dam driving water upwards in the groundwater there. So there's good aquatic habitat as well as good soil moisture for sustaining vegetation. And we think that the restoration plan can be fairly limited in the actual restoration actions, because we're hoping that native recruitment, and we'll be documenting this, will be sufficient to get the system back together. Next, Jamie. Just making the point that these are areas, the coloration in there shows where their USGS has shown from aerial imagery, satellite imagery, that there is good potential for listed species habitat. The one problem is that nice green, high quality habitat shown on those maps, that includes Arundo. The NDVI approach that Jim Hatton from USGS was taking does not differentiate on the basis of species composition. So that's why we needed to go back in and do on the ground monitoring to actually do the vegetation composition of the sites. And just briefly to note that there are a whole range of other species that either are present in the site or are very likely to be if we can enhance the vegetation in this groundwater dependent ecosystem. Next, Jamie. Just another site here. We're going to be tracking arthropods in this location as well, partly because I'm an entomologist, but also because Gordon Frankie's person is working with urban and agricultural area pollinators out of UC Berkeley, but he's operating already with a site on the Lloyd Butler Ranch. So we'll be collaborating with him to look at pollinators derived from riparian vegetation that can perform a role in pollination of particularly avocados in the adjacent agricultural lands, as well as with Linnea Hall, who's director of the Western Foundation there in Camarillo. We'll be looking at the value of these riparian plants, not just the trees, but the understory vegetation that we anticipate coming in or may do some planting of, in order to produce the food resources that are needed for those listed species. And particularly cuckoos need to have large-bodied insects and small organisms. Okay, next. So shifting gears, this is the Wildlife Conservation Board project planning grant that I already mentioned. And it is based on the fact that these maps on the left show that Arundo over a time period of the last couple decades has definitely been increasing in this area. It's a little hard to show from this map, but we'll be documenting the vegetation changes as we try to reverse that process to get Arundo back to being a minor element of the ecosystem. And we'll also be handling a range of other invasive plants present in the area. Tamarisk in particular is worked its way into this system. So I won't go through these other details because I already mentioned the Wildlife Conservation Board program, but we're hoping that the end of this year, we can actually start submitting the implementation grants to carry out the plan that we develop. Next, Jamie. So then shifting gears again, we've been talking with a lot of folks about what we refer to as watershed-wide Arundo management, or WAM. The notion being that rather than dealing with Arundo on these little piecemeal parcels scattered throughout the watershed, we want to take a more coherent approach to looking at a watershed level approach to managing this plant. And while we intend to focus on a range of different objectives, biodiversity enhancement, water conservation, fire reduction, et cetera, Arundo, it kind of provides an organizing principle, an organizing element to conduct all this work from. And these are the list of objectives that we want to work with on a watershed scale. And we're developing the kind of framework for this WAM program with some initial funding from the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. And we've had discussions with United about partnering in this as well. So it is turning into a larger program that eventually will be bringing in a whole range of cooperators, partners, as shown in the next slide, Jamie. The initial group, our own group out of UCSB and Stillwater Sciences, Santa Clara River Conservancy. So Sean is on this meeting as well. He's directly involved in this. And the RCD is also directly involved. But we have a whole host of other partners that have agreed to become part of the program. And we will make available how others, this meeting, the mailing list, things like that, can be brought into it as we develop this process. And the idea is to really cross the county line and truly take a watershed perspective on dealing with this issue. And part of a IRWM project we have in the upper watershed feeds into this WAM program because it's to evaluate the current situation with the Rundo and essentially prioritize where we want to do work first, where we can get essentially the most bang for the buck, or where there are the most risks right now, things like fire and flood risks. So more on that as we develop this. Jamie, I think the last slide is next here.
All right. The little laptop's being a little sketchy. I'm not sure why it's not wanting to.
So just one final hit. I want to make the point that we're also looking at for groundwater dependent ecosystems. We're concerned that with climate change, some of the native plants, cottonwoods and willows that are presently important habitat in these systems are actually physiologically may not be capable of sustaining productivity under the drier, warmer conditions of the future climate change or current climate change. So we're looking to develop these gardens throughout the watershed, 3 different areas we're looking at where we'll test different genetic types of cottonwoods initially for the purpose of determining whether there are genotypes of these plants that are more suited to the change conditions from climate change. In other words, they can tolerate warmer temperatures and operate under lower water availability. So I just wanted to make this point quickly and say that that yellow zone is Lloyd Butler property where they've agreed to, if the funding comes through, develop one of these common gardens. And in fact, there is a bill that's in Congress right now, HR 4145, that is to provide funding for this program, as well as about 30 other sites in the Western states. So it's a really pretty exciting program, but it's at the very early stages, and we're crossing fingers that Congress will come through on this. So, all right, with that, I'll stop using up too much time. And Jamie, want the next one to come on?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah, and just to circle back. Oh, now my laptop wants to really jump. Just to circle back, those pretty much covered almost 3 different initiatives. There's the Arundo removal effort, then there's sort of a Arundo planning effort, and then there's the WAM effort. So, you know, we're sort of in one particular time and space, but as all of these things continue to develop, we'll continue to look for additional funding and also work with more partners to keep this effort going and expanding throughout the watershed. So on that note, I kind of want to jump into a project that has a lot of support. This is the Fillmore Fish Hatchery Garden Restoration Project, primarily for youth access, but also education and community engagement. The project lead is my colleague, Deb Behringer. Deb is on vacation with family, so she couldn't present. I send her regrets, but we do happen to be leads, so I'll go ahead and take over for her to discuss this. But despite the fact that we may be lead, I do want to make sure to emphasize partnerships that actually make this happen. So thanks to the Fillmore Fish Hatchery unit of CDFW for allowing this project to occur within their area of influence. A bunch of other stakeholders, and I'll apologize ahead of time if I don't name everybody, but the ones that jump to mind are the Friends of the Santa Clara Rivers, the Santa Paula Unified School District, as well as Channel Islands Restoration. And I want to point out that this project that we're lead on is funded through the California Natural Resources Agency. So just a quick run through of this particular project. Most are probably familiar with it already. This is right outside Fillmore, and what the funding allows for is sort of enhancements of the existing site through some planning efforts. Again, my understanding is that this project sort of got initial seed money about 4 years ago and really allowed efforts to go forward with respect to putting in some infrastructure and putting in place some outreach and education paths and a little bit of youth engagement. But then as funding happens, it sort of goes away sometimes. And so the efforts continue through volunteer projects, et cetera. And then Deb was able to assist with a little bit of funding through CNRA. And the goal here is to sort of expand on what's already happened. So add in a little bit more elements such as more planting areas, update the trails, put in additional signage, create some additional infrastructure for continuing education for the youth. And so, the primary focus for this project, as it has sort of always been, really is outdoor education for youth and community engagement. There's good community efforts that have already occurred. There's engagement with the Santa Paula School District. Cindy Martin is Isabel Elementary teacher there, and so she's put in a lot of time and effort. Holly Wright, with everybody knows, with Channel Islands Restoration, has also helped with education, et cetera. And there's just a huge volunteer force already involved. And so, the focus will be on native plant ID, wildlife, habitat, sort of ecosystem services, floodplain management, and then good old fashioned restoration for the kids. So ultimately, the youth will learn about local ecology, conservation, and the watershed they live in, cultural history, native plantings and design, how to share information, how to consider those of us who are disadvantaged in some way, and how to help those folks enjoy this site. And then, just sort of meeting regularly and maintaining the site, because as we all know, maintenance is usually the thing that is the weak link in a lot of this work that we're involved in. I do want to point out there's still room for engagement. We are sort of working on volunteer basis, I should say, TED in particular, as well as the other partners. Funding sort of begins in the summer. So if you're interested in this project, if you'd like to engage, please feel free to reach out to me. Deb, again, is the lead. I can put you in contact with her. And so with that, we're going to, again, switch gears real quick. Just as a reminder for everyone, this is a high-level primer for all the different stuff we're involved in. So the next topic that we're going to touch on is sort of agricultural restoration. This is an agricultural hedgerow project, and I'm going to introduce my colleague, Desiree. Desiree, are you available and unmuted?
Hi, yeah. Can you hear me?
Jamie, before switching, there was a question from Heather Miranda about why Santa Paula Unified School District is involved and not Fillmore School District or other Fillmore youth organizations, if you know the answer to that.
I think the answer to that would simply be that Santa Paula Unified through Isabel Middle School was sort of just already involved. But I think the plan is obvious. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but I do think the plan is to expand to include other school districts. It was just in the initial partnership that I showed on that slide wasn't supposed to be exclusionary by any means. These are just sort of individuals who had already been involved, were involved in the project development, And so I put them, but we certainly do look forward to having additional contacts with the other schools in the area. Hopefully that helps answer that question, Heather. All right, Des, you ready?
Yeah, I'll get in. So I'll be talking about a couple of our riparian restorations we have at the RCD. The first one is on ag lands in Fillmore. It borders the Santa Clara River on the northern end. And then, as you can see by this red polygon on the map, there's a riparian corridor that's also adjacent to the property. Go to the next slide. So this is at the King and King Ranch. They have an organic avocado farm. And this project was funded by the Department of Conservation through their Working Lands Riparian Corridor program, which aims to enhance pollinator and nectar resources and also other habitat for wildlife as they're moving through the riparian corridor and inhabiting the Santa Clara River. And this will in turn provide ecological benefits for the crops through ecosystem services. And the next slide. So we were lucky enough to get 1,100 plants. A lot of these are donated through NCAT, the National Center for Appropriate Technology. And this was really great, helpful for us so we can allocate those funds to other parts of the project. So while we were selecting these plants, we kind of wanted to keep in mind the spread and the bloom time of the plants. These hedgerows were located right alongside willow windrows. So we wanted to make sure we were keeping in mind the growth of the willows and the shade that they're going to bring, and also keeping in mind bloom time so we know what nectar resources are available throughout the year. So this left us with 10 by 20 foot planting areas between each willow windrow. And I'll show you on the next slide how we kind of designed those. Go to the next. So we wouldn't be able to get all these planted and maintained without our wonderful volunteer force. I called it the hedgerow helpers because there was a lot of plants to plant and a lot to maintain, as we still are. We came up with different planting schemes. We have 3 of them, as you can see in the bottom here, and they're color coded. So we marked each plant with different colors, and we did that based on the size that they're going to grow into. As you can see, the pink circle is for a 10 or 20 feet crop. So that could be like an elderberry, and then something small could be planted alongside of it, like a yarrow. And this was just so we knew the size that the plants are going to grow into, and we kept in mind what the willow windrows were going to grow into, and how they are going to affect the plants with shade. So after we got the plants planted, we were able to move on to weeding and maintenance. Living in a riparian area, there's really rich soil and the weeds love it. So our hedgerow helpers were really needed to kind of come in and give the plants the head start that they needed to keep on growing and not compete the weeds. Get the next slide. And then we were able to move on to our next stage in the project, which is the monitoring. We made this monitoring protocol just so we can see kind of the success, the survivability of the plants, and how the wildlife that were moving through the riparian corridor were going to utilize these resources. So for the floral monitoring, we use photo points just so we can kind of get a visual representation of the change over time. And these photo points were fixed along the hedgerow, just so we can compare over time how the plants are growing and so forth. And then we also have fixed quadrants, and this measures the growth and survivorship of the plants. Also just another representation of change over time. And then we also have the faunal monitoring. These were direct and indirect observations and evidence for the use of the hedgerows by wildlife. First, we have the avian surveys. I plan these to get done before the first thing before any of the other monitoring, just so we can account for any disturbance. And as the monitors are walking through the hedgerows, we're also noticing any observations of other wildlife, such as scat, prints, anything of those sorts. And then we did surveys for invertebrates. We did quadrant surveys, which basically looked at the plant species associations between the invertebrates and the plants. And then also transect surveys. So we can account for native bees or honeybees or any other invertebrates that are using the hedgerows and what's coming along to use these nectar resources. Next slide. So another project we have on riparian lands is a Rancho Ventura native oak woodland restoration. This is a total of 15 acres. We have 4 sites along this property, as you can see with the different colored polygons. We're planning on planting 400 trees, partly oaks and partly sycamores. And we're thinking about adding in companion plantings as well, just to help the mycorrhizal relationships along those trees and plants. This is mainly riparian or upland habitat restoration, just based on where these polygons are. And we're hoping to restore the canyon hydrology, which will in turn benefit the wildlife and riparian vegetation. And then we are also going to create another monitoring protocol, just as the other Department of Conservation program we have. And we're hoping to measure germination rates, tree survivorship and vigor, and what wildlife are going to come in and use these new resources and other species that we haven't seen on the ranch before. And we're going to keep in mind different climate variables and then the vegetation community at large in this area. So this project is also funded by the Department of Conservation, and we're just getting started on it, but we're hoping to see some great results and really excited about our first oak woodland restoration.
Here, here. Thank you so much, Des.
Yeah, of course.
And in case anybody was wondering, Des is our biological monitor. Laura, I want to give a quick question. By my count, we're over already. So how should I address that? Meanwhile, as Laura,
how many more slides? I was looking at or how many more minutes do you think you need? I think we could give like, let's see, like another 3, 4
Okay.
minutes, 3 minutes.
Okay. All right, I'll go really quick. This is just a quick, unfortunately, Andy Sparka is unable to join us. He's my colleague here. Many of you already know his name. I want to just give a shout out to the Monarch and Pollinator Regional Advisory Committee, MRAC. This has been around for a couple of years now. This is sort of an opportunity for stakeholders who are interested in monarch and pollinator habitat to kind of get together and discuss funding opportunities and project opportunities. We have biannual meetings, so please feel free to reach out to myself or to Andy if you'd like to be involved in that. Primary goals are to expand habitat, do research, and engage in outreach and education. Part of this is all really just planning. It's just to sort of set out what do we have available and what can we put together as sort of like a block grant to be able to get the important work done for the monarch and pollinator habitat enhancements and restoration. And just a case in point, I want to point out a new project that we're engaging in. Annie was able to secure funding for the Harmony project. So what that's going to allow us to do is do monarch habitat assessments and restoration. It's funded through the Wildlife Conservation Board, actually spans both Ventura and Santa Barbara County. There's a site in the Santa Clara River. The Sataquoy Yard is slated for improvements. Total of 11 acres. It's breeding, migratory, as well as overwintering sites. It'll allow for implementation of 3 habitat management plans that were already created. It allows us to create 3 new overwintering site habitat management plans, as well as 7 breeding and migratory habitat plans. It'll also allow for development of a monarch alert system, just to let people know, hey, it's monarch migratory season. Please don't be spraying if you don't need to. Let's help keep these species healthy and happy as they migrate in and out of these overwintering sites. So again, I beg people to engage with MRAC so that you get us a list of projects. These projects that you see on this map that got funded were projects that were on our portfolio of projects and partners. And we expect this to continue. So if you get your projects into us, we can find ways to get them funded. So that's what I want to say about that. I'm going to step aside and let Heidi, my colleague Heidi, jump in to move us forward with respect to some wildfire program information. Heidi, you available?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you, Jamie. So I'm going to keep this really short for you guys. I'm here to talk about some of the wildfire programs that Ventura County Resource Conservation District is a part of. The main one I want to highlight is that we are a member of the Ventura County Wildfire Collaborative, which is currently made up of VCRCD. You can see Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, Bell Canyon Fire Safe Council, Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council, and Jensen Hughes, which is a private engineering firm that specializes in risk and safety consulting. And you can read our mission statement right there, but basically we're just trying to get the whole county on the same page when it comes to wildfire preparedness and education. So Jamie, you can go to the next page. We're currently working on a grant funded through CAL FIRE and the California Climate Investments Group. And it's kind of broken up into 6 components. The first one is updating the Ventura County Wildfire Protection Plan that is under the Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. VCRCD is working on the community outreach, primarily through town halls. We're also doing some youth curriculum. I do want to give a shout out. We are still forming a community advisory committee. So if you're interested in sharing, what you think our priorities should be, definitely please contact us. Won't be that big of a time commitment. We're looking at about 4 meetings a year. And then Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council is also launching a county-wide home hardening program. They have liaisons working throughout the county, just trying to help homes that do live in a high fire severity area to get prepared. Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council, they are responsible for some fine scale risk and vulnerability mapping, as well as an evacuation assessment in the Ojai Valley to start. That's kind of like our pilot, kind of test the feasibility and work out any kinks. And then the goal is to hopefully get funding later on to work throughout the rest of the county on these vulnerability mapping projects. And the final main project is we hope to host a California Wildfire Summit towards the end of next year, just to get some wildfire professionals together and kind of share what we've learned, what other fire agencies have learned. And this would kind of be Southern California focused. You can go to the next page. And just want to highlight a couple other things we offer. We have a virtual wildfire speaker series that we offer several times a year. And our next one's going to be June 7th. It's Understanding Wildfire and Insurance. We also are launching some home hardening assessments this summer. We have a wildfire newsletter that you can subscribe to if you go to our website, vcrcd.org. And we do have a prescribed burn association, which just recently got formal funding. So keep an eye out for more updates on that. And I do want to highlight a prescribed grazing initiative that Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council has really been leading the charge on, but we are a supporting partner. They're trying to use goats, sheep, and cattle to kind of lighten the potential fuel load in certain areas in Ojai, but we do have hopes that it can be used in other areas in Ventura County. So thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate that. Let me see. Okay, this is the last set of slides. I don't want to overdo the time. So I just want to introduce this very quickly. This is our Merlin project. It's an interactive irrigation and nutrient management project. We've got a number of sites where we have these nutrient and irrigation management stations located in the Santa Clara River, as well as in other watersheds, all of which are impacted by nutrient loading. And the presumption is that at least some of that loading comes from agricultural lands. And so the goal of Merlin is to provide on-site nutrient and irrigation management stations so that growers can better conserve their water resources, which will also lead to a lack or reduction in nutrient loading through leaching. So this uses a bunch of technology. I don't have the time to go through this all, but what we're doing is we're using this suite of NIM stations to provide real-time and also monthly data to growers so that they can tailor the irrigation to reduce leaching. And they can also track how much fertilizer is in their soil and maintain it there for production and reduce it to limits that won't impact water quality through leaching. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions. I apologize for going over time, Laura, and I appreciate the patience for everybody in the Watershed Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. There's just so much going on. It's I appreciate the time to review all this, and there's just a lot of projects. Lynn had asked about Rancho Ventura, where that was located. Could you make sure we know where that is?
Yeah, Rancho Ventura is the Rancho Ventura Conservation Trust. So that's right to the west of Arroyo Verde Park, if you're familiar with that. It's right above Foothill, and it's a little bit above Ventura. It actually, that particular project site actually doesn't drain to the Santa Clara River. It drains to a subunit of the Ventura River. But we hope that, as was indicated, we're doing a bunch of monitoring and research. And the idea there really is to use this opportunity to understand what allows for higher germination rates and for tree growth vigor, so that we can replicate that in other areas where oak restoration could be done. So there's lots of reasons why we're looking forward to this project and its impacts or benefits, I should say, to the Santa Clara River watershed.
Well, thank you very much. And due to time, if there's anybody have any questions for Jamie, if you can add them into the chat, and then he can look at them or any of the others and add in on that. So I appreciate that very much, and the collaboration with everyone to get this done. So next up is our WCVC program update, and I'm going to pass this over to Lynn. Thank you, Jamie and all.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jamie and your team, and also to Adrian for the first presentation. That was great. And I'm just, there's so much going on. We should be having these meetings more often because unfortunately we sometimes run out of time to get into the detail and discuss. But I have to say the RCD, you and your team, Jamie, are so successful at raising grant funding. I can't believe how many grants you've gotten, you and your partners. And this is one of the all of these programs are a showcase for how the IRWM program, as one of your partners, has been able to leverage so much going on in the watershed and in the county. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this update because we do have some other important items today, but the Proposition 1, as you all know, we've been waiting for round 2 guidelines and PSP to come out, and they finally did a couple days ago. And so that's our signal to get started with looking at projects for implementation and for requests for funds in the application process. So I'm not going to get into the schedule today because I actually have to still put that together. But just in summary, Laura put this slide together. Thank you, Laura. A total of $193 million available for implementation funding across the state. It is our last known IRWM source of funding. Targeting those kinds of projects. We have 40.67 million actually in our region, I think it's 34.3 million for general implementation in our funding area, and $6.37 million for DAC funding in our funding area. So
I apologize if I got that wrong. I pulled it quickly off of
it's okay.
DWR's website. That was on the table that they have on that link.
We'll gladly take the higher number though.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I'll have to look at that. That is interesting. And we are working on an agreement with our partners in the other two watersheds to become a non-competitive funding area, which would mean we would know exactly how much money we are applying for and have a more streamlined application process, which is good news. But stay tuned for more information about that. The $6.37 million in DAC funding for the funding area, we will be working that through our Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program Task Force that Laura and I both sit on, representing Watersheds Coalition. And we're actively engaged right now with identifying what projects we might want for that funding. Just so you know, if you want to look at the implementation, or rather the guidelines in PSP, they're on the website at this link, which I know Laura will be putting this on the website. And then finally, the timing for this application is our application. Well, there's going to be two deadlines, August, I think it's 19th and February 1st. We are going to be aiming for that second deadline, February 1st. So we do have time, but we do have to move fast to work through our process, which is to start at the watershed level of each of the watersheds, look at what projects they have that would be applicable to this source of funding, and then come up with recommendations watershed by watershed, and then move that up through the steering committee and ultimately to our general membership. So lots more information to come on that, but basically we're out of the starting gate now, and that's exciting. So are there any questions about round two before I move on to the next one? Okay, so on, and I'm happy to give this one, but Laura, do you want to do this, the DACIP update?
Sure. So I think this was back at our March 30th meeting. We wanted to give you all an update on the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Program. Our DAC committee selected to move forward with all 6 projects that were submitted for technical assistance. So for a total of, I think it's $453,000. There were 6 projects that were selected. I listed them here. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to, explain each one of them. Some of them are education based, like the rundo removal crew, language training. That's more of an education project in both Spanish, English, and technical crews, and those that are working on a lot of the actual rundo removal. And I think the Garden Acres one is kind of self-explanatory as well, as an educational. And then we have, I know Evelina has joined us today, who we invited to just kind of mention the 2 Ventura County projects. And if Evelina, if you wanted to say a few things, introduce those.
Sure, thank you. This is Evelina, Senior Stormwater Manager at Ventura County Public Works. So we are very excited about getting the funding to conduct site assessment and feasibility study, planning, 30% design for stormwater capture type of retrofits for groundwater recharge at the Saticoy Park and in El Rio. And the idea here is to identify and analyze opportunities for stormwater capture, for groundwater recharge, to select the best ones and be ready for future grant funding for implementation. And we will be working with County Parks and Recreation Department at the Saticoy Park to coordinate our efforts. And in El Rio, if needed, we'll reach out to United Water Conservation District for some collaborative ideas. I'm right now in the process of preparing documentation contract for our internal approvals, and hope to kick off the both projects late next month. Everything is due to be completed in December, so it's a pretty tight project schedule. And as soon as we are ready to share, we obviously will keep you posted. And we have funding for project public outreach in English and Spanish, so you will definitely hear more about those two projects. Thank you.
And I know this has been like a really short timeline, a big push to get all the documentation and this in order and the agreement. So it was no small feat. It was maybe not that hard to go out to get accepted the projects, but I know that getting all the paperwork and everything in order and then on the short timeline is a bit of a challenge.
So just as a reminder for everybody, this is also funded by Proposition 1, and this portion of the grant will expire in December of this year. So that's the reason why we're kind of in a rush. We did also apply for some drought relief funding in 2 of our projects in the county, actually both of them in the Santa Clara River watershed, in the Nyland Acres community. Between the 2 of them are going to receive $1.4 million for drought relief projects. And that is going to actually be added on to this drought grant, to the DACIP grant agreement and extended out until 2026. But this main component that these 6 projects are being funded by these studies, that part of the grant will be completed at the end of this year. And yesterday we had a DAC committee meeting, and we're given some presentations about updates on the Water Talks program. And Laura, I don't know when the last time was that we shared information with this committee, but it might be a good idea for us now to share. If you haven't recently, we can send out a notice with information about updates to Water Talks, like the new dashboard, the needs assessment results, and some other things that I think will be of interest to the group.
Yeah, I know that we've mentioned that there's that now shows the results of the community needs assessment survey that was conducted from 2019 through 2020, and is actually, the survey is still open, and the dashboard will be updated this summer, I think soon, in the next 2 months or so, with any additional surveys that have been collected in the recent months. So I think I sent the link to that dashboard in a last email to this group, but maybe we'll put that on another agenda or through an email, just some updates on that, because we're also just developed some kind of, I don't know what, the fact sheets for each community, each of the 9 disadvantaged communities, based on the needs assessment survey. So it's easy to digest, and we just showed the drafts of those yesterday. And once those are completed, those would be great tools to look at the communities and what their perceived or their understanding of their greatest needs and challenges and strengths are, which I know that we've already heard from one of the mutuals is going to be useful for them in applying for grant funding as well.
And, special thanks to both EJ and Tony, who serve as our steering committee representatives for this watershed. They have been attending our DAC committee meetings, as has Supervisor Long and her staff, and Supervisor Ramirez and her staff. So we really appreciate the engagement of a lot of you in that process. It's really been a valuable program, and we're excited to move into this final stage with the 6 studies.
If there aren't any questions about both, Lynn sharing the IRWM and update in the DAC committee, I think we can move on.
Yes, I think we should, just for time. So if you have any questions, put it in the chat, or we can email Lynn or Laura on your questions for that. All right, so let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to share, I think I've sent this, this has been shared also in an email. There was a link in the last 2 emails that I sent to our email list about the draft of the greatest needs for the Santa Clara River watershed. It if you recall, the last meeting, we went through the 2019 list that was developed when we were working on the IRWM plan update and preparation for round 1 IRWM funding, and got some feedback from that meeting, which I tried to incorporate as best I could in here, and then shared that back out through emails to the group and to see if we could receive some further input. I think I received 2 or 3 responses from those emails, which kind of reiterated what we already have here. Comment about keeping, wanting to keep Santa Clara River as one of the, last remaining free-flowing rivers in Southern California, which is part of the mission of the committee, as part of our vision statement as well. And about maintaining water quality, which I realize is not actually on here, but I think in terms of greatest needs, it sort of struck me that when we say maintaining water quality, I think that there's a fairly good confidence that in the Santa Clara River watershed for decent water quality, and it has not been prioritized as one of the greatest needs at this moment. So sharing this back with you, the list kind of got longer, if you notice, with more words than from 2019. So I kind of wanted to bring that up, and as a colleague of mine, if you know Gerard Kapusek in the Watershed Protection District, would always say, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So with that in mind, is there anything on this list that you see as, the top few things that are definitely the priority at the moment? I know that it's hard. Nobody wants to say something is not a priority or downgrade it. But I think that it could be helpful for discussion purposes to, what are the top things on this list that come to mind right now as our priorities? And we can maintain the list as is. We don't need to necessarily cut anything, because this will go in a plan amendment, and we do want to make sure it's inclusive of all of our needs. So when we apply for funding, if we have a project that touches on any of these needs, we can point and show DWR that, yes, we've identified that as a need. This is why the project is important to us. But for brevity's sake and simplicity, I wanted to open this up for comments. And there's some on here that I think could be combined, like 3 and 4 potentially. Also simplifying the wording down. And there's also the email included a link where you can type in comments if you haven't already, send the comments on this list.
Yeah, I want to just add to that, Laura, that as you all know, there are also 6 goals in our IRWM plan that are broader statements that drive a lot of what we do. And we've never prioritized those goals because, for the reasons you just said, they're all important. And so do you have, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, those are those goals.
Yeah. And so, some of those greatest needs obviously fit into one or more of these goals. And it seems like a lot of the ones on the list in one way or another touch on number 6, climate change, things related to drought and frequency of rainfall, things like that, interties. So if it's possible to, not eliminate, to highlight say 3 or 4 primary needs that we see as of now, like short term, basically for the term of this grant application. We're looking at the near future for our application to the state. If we're able to highlight, 3 things that are really things we're emphasizing right now, that's fine. If we don't, it's not a problem. I mean, the state's not requiring us to do that. It's just, I think, good for this group to be thinking about, where do we want to focus our energy? Where are we focusing our energy, and where else do we want to focus our energy going forward in the next, say, 5 years?
Well, I'm going to ask for somebody, some comments to all those on chat. Feel free to just type in the chat, a couple of your favorites in here, like the numbers. That's an easy way to give some feedback for us.
Lynn, can I ask a question in regards with the state just coming out with our May revise and a surplus of one-time money? Is that something we really need to focus on, is to make sure that our organizations, that our team have projects ready to go that would be able to apply for that funding? Is that any, to me, that seems like a high priority to ensure that programs do get funded.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, absolutely. And as you probably know, you may have gone to that briefing where we heard more about the climate commitment that is a major emphasis of this additional funding that was added through the May revise to the already substantial funding that was put in the January version of the budget. And so I think as it's really important for us to think about that, and these goals and priorities that we're talking about now are things are touchstones for us as we apply for some of those other funds. We have been talking, there's a lot of money for underserved communities. So that's a focus of our DAC committee. We talked about the May revise yesterday and about the additional funds for small communities and urban agencies for drought relief. So I think we need to sort of pull this all together and make it clear to people that there was way more than just the round 2 Prop 1 funding available in the next year or two. Some of it's one time or grant. So I think I'm just thinking about I'm still digesting the May revise, which just came out on Friday, as well as thinking ahead to the first, now that we have the final guidelines in PSP. So I think that's a great point. I think that's something that perhaps Laura and I can get together on and frame it up for folks. So, because the applications for all this funding that's coming out in the state budget are individual entities applying. They're not applying through our program, but there's so much synergy between those kinds of programs, drought relief projects and such, nature-based solutions, all the things that are priority in the climate funding. We need to probably help people understand the interconnection there. And as we talk about projects in the watershed for round 2, some of those are maybe a better fit for some of this one-time funding. So I'm glad you raised that, and we will be working in that direction.
I would greatly appreciate it, because what I don't want are people turned down because they didn't have their project, to the point they needed it, and maybe it was just a week more. So the more we can get proactive on these items, the better, I think.
And you're absolutely right. If you realize this year's budget, that money rolled out as soon as the legislature approved the budget or adopted the budget, they were starting to release those funds immediately. So it is going to be important for folks that want to apply for, say, the urban or small community drought relief funding, that they be ready. And just so everybody knows, if you did apply for any of that money, I don't think anybody in this group did, but in this current budget year, they are going to start over. So you are going to have to resubmit any application you submitted. They were hundreds of, I think $900 million oversubscribed in the urban drought relief program. So the need is great, and these are competitive grants. So to the extent we can, we'll put together some timelines. I think they're going to open up the funding in probably August for some of that one-time budget funds. So yeah, we can't delay.
And I never really looked, a question on the urban drought funding. I never really looked personally at the list of projects that were approved. I know there was a massive list of potential projects that was submitted. And have you had a chance to look at those and see what was, were there groupings, were there types of projects that were approved that would be useful information for those that might be applying in the future?
Sorry. Yes, we can go back and look at that list. I assume that the guidelines for those funds will be similar to the ones in the current budget year. So we can also remind people of what the criteria are, eligibility criteria for projects in those two pots of funding. Obviously, the small communities funding is for smaller, like mutual water companies, a real small, but urban is for larger. So yes, we can pull that information together and I think we need to have we'll be needing to have some meetings fairly soon to go over this, probably with the steering committee. So thank you for bringing that up, Tony.
I have another question on the list. I don't completely understand what number 7, aligned regulatory requirements, was trying to get at.
Well, I'll just say that on a statewide level, the IRWM Roundtable of Regions and the State Department of Water Resources IRWM Strategic Plan emphasize the importance of regulatory alignment so that projects can move forward. You know, when there's multiple requirements from different state and federal agencies, it can really slow down progress on a project. So that's been a priority at the state for a while, and certainly from local entities that are, and as you well know, having implemented many projects yourself, it's like, how can we align the requirements among the agencies so that we can have a more timely approval and less delays in getting a project implemented.
Maybe we could change that to just regulatory alignment. Does that kind of fit better with the terminology? I wonder, it's like the one thing on this list that I don't know how much control we have over. I guess there's always, you know, advocating for and for regulatory alignment.
Laura, one point related to that. I think Tony and I get confused by the same thing, I guess. I was wondering what 7 was, but then I was thinking, actually, we are looking at, you've probably heard of CDFW's Cutting the Green Tape Initiative. And we're trying to organize a bunch of folks to develop that, maybe for a major portion of the river, but eventually for the entire Santa Clara River, so that projects that are in channel can move forward without, you know, on an average of 2 years delay,
And
going through all the regulatory.
that's like a permitting process that makes sense. It's not, I mean, streamlined permitting, I think, is one way to put it. Of course, we want to be careful not to say that there's any corners being cut in any way. It's just a process that makes sense and is straightforward and easy enough to follow, so that it doesn't run into lots of delays and hiccups that are unnecessary. That's another example of, I guess, a regulatory requirement that is a hindrance to us being able to do some of the work we want to and need to.
And I mean, we have some regulatory agencies on this call today. And I don't know if they want to weigh in on that, but I think it is important to to talk about streamlining and the green tape initiative that you're discussing, Tom. Those could be mentioned under number 7 to be more clear.
Any other comments or questions? Anything we're missing? I think if anything, this list just gets longer every time we talk about it. And we could organize this and have, you know, actually, like Lynn said, put things underneath. Like, I mean, for example, 1 is just climate resiliency, but as subtext, it's managing the watershed for extreme, dry, and less frequent, more severe storms, and fire resiliency. I mean, those are the 2 main keys. Same with GSP, implementing GSPs. I think last meeting, we mentioned that with an increased, you know, with an eye on coordination and filling data gaps as a priority during that process.
Okay.
If anyone has, like, you know, even nitpicky comments, please email me. I don't mind about grammar, text, you know, punctuation. I'm very open to that. This is just going to go in our IRWM plan, I guess, amendment, and something that we will reference when submitting our application to DWR with our projects. And we'll probably look back at this list when we're doing our project selection, and just kind of seeing, does it check the boxes? Does it check off this list? And And especially actually, Lynn, we haven't talked that much about how we could use this potentially with the Tapped app or just reviewing this. When we're selecting projects this time around, one thing we've talked about is, and had our eyes set on is possibly using the Tapped app, which is a project selection tool developed for the disadvantaged community program, where we took the needs that were identified by the community alongside then the projects that were submitted and the benefits that each project says that they have, and comparing that to the needs of the community, what the community says their needs are. And you can weight it, you can change the weighting however you want, but that's a application that we've just been starting to talk about in the Disadvantaged Community Committee and showing that off. It's not finished yet, the Tapped app. There's still some tweaking being done on the application, but that's something we would like to share with this committee, and especially, steering committee members, so that they're familiar with it. But it could be used when we're looking at the project, so that we have a little more transparency on how projects are selected, and crosswalking them, connecting them with the needs. So with that in mind, I don't know if that brings up any further thoughts or comments, but you can always email me too on this list of greatest needs, because we could turn these into, I guess, sort of criteria for selecting projects. And we could decide at that time to weight them, add a little more, weight to a few of them over others as well.
Mhm. No, thank you for suggesting that. We have been talking to the guy who developed the Tapped app, who's at Cal State Northridge, and we've alerted him that we might want to make modifications to the application specific to Ventura County. And yeah, using these greatest needs as well as our goals, which we always look at our goals. We always look at projects and how they align with the goals and help address them, but getting down to the level of additional criteria for based on the greatest needs is a really good idea. Thanks, Laura.
I think we can move on then from this, but there's a comment I just saw in the chat that came up from Kendall from Navy Base Ventura County. You had an update to share on something related to disadvantaged community, I think that is. Do you want to share that update now?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Kendall Lucine, or Kenny. I am the Community Planning and Liaison Officer with Naval Base Ventura. There is one federal funding opportunity that was recently announced, which kind of ties into what United was able to get for the iron and manganese water treatment project last year. That was our installation. We sponsored United to get that federal grant through the Defense Community Infrastructure Pilot Program. It's a very competitive funding program. And this year, they recently announced that it's up to $90 million for projects to be awarded by this end of this fiscal year. There are some criteria, though, that must be met to be a suitable project for a nomination. It must be shovel ready. That concept in itself is a little bit scary, but it can be done. We were successful last year, and so I have no doubts that all the various projects that our local municipalities and groups are working on, we can potentially collaborate on that effort and bring another project into fruition if local avenues for funding are not readily available. So shovel ready means it must be able to turn dirt within 12 months from the time of award. I could share a link. It's also on the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation website. And also, if anyone has any other questions for me, happy to assist where I can. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And that's a grant that we need to coordinate with the Naval Base Ventura County on, and are you the
Yes.
contact then? Okay.
Yes, I am the point lead for the installation and our community engagements with outside entities.
Thank you. Okay, well, not seeing any further comments on these greatest needs, so I guess we did an excellent job, and maybe I'll just tweak the wording of 7. And we'll keep this available and kind of reflect back on it as we go towards the project selection phase. So we can, I think, move on unless Lynn, you want to say something?
I just have a really quick, I don't know if we're going to have time for announcements at the end because we're running behind. So in related to funding opportunities, I'm just telling you, I'm going to put in the chat that the funding fairs, which talk about state and federal funding opportunities related to water, are being held. The first one was held on Tuesday, and the next one is going to be next week. And I think it's on Thursday, but I will post in the chat. All you have to do is register. It's a virtual event, and there's I have sent messages out about this in the past, but there's a set of guideline or a handbook that connects you to all the resources. But in addition to the great California grants website, grants.ca.gov, where you can get a lot of this information, also the funding fair is a great source. So I'll post that in the chat, and you might want to consider tuning into that event next week.
Okay, everyone. Next up is the IRWM plan project list. We have Tony and then Jamie.
Yeah, and I think that in since Resource Conservation District has a shorter list of projects, we're going to ask if Jamie, if you're ready, maybe you can quickly just give kind of a status update on these projects, if they're moving. The goal is we're going through the project list that was in the IRWM plan from our last project solicitation. And we have both United and RCD that volunteered or were asked to give their updates on the status of these projects. The whole list of projects can be found in the IRWM plan. And just an update if, these are still actively being pursued, if they've already been funded, if they still need funding, if they're conceptual. And that's kind of just what we're looking for today. Thank you.
Yeah, so the short answer would be that they're still conceptual. A little bit and pieces of many of these may have been integrated into existing projects, but stated as they are in this list, I would say that as far as the Agricultural Water Project Investment Prioritization Task Force, I'm looking at this list realizing that I'm pretty lazy because I haven't made any progress on any of these. I would love to convene a stakeholder session to be able to prioritize agricultural projects. And I think now is a good time with the plans that are coming about for the GSAs. The remote sensing or residue project that we were looking for funding through 219H for that, and I lost our remote sensing machine learning data scientist, so we couldn't move forward on that one. But it's one that we're still pursuing. In the urban water efficiency program, we've worked with water districts. We have like hobby farm evaluations that we do, but we haven't, and I used to do quite a lot of urban water, like large turf irrigation evaluations for Santa Barbara County RCD. But we haven't been able to move forward to sort of work with municipalities or other urban landscape type facilities to be able to move that forward. But all of these are still on this list because we'd like to still pursue them. I just unfortunately haven't found the time to push those things forward. So that's my update.
Thanks, Jamie. And it sounds like some of these, maybe especially that last one, maybe the timing is ripe for building more partnerships with cities and given our current drought situation. So Thank you. And then nobody thinks you're lazy, given the long list of projects that you weren't even able to get through today and sharing with us. So.
Well, I appreciate that, and to go back to your first comment, yeah, partnerships are our lifeblood, and it's never a bad time for partnerships, right? So hopefully, as one of the things I wanted to share was some of the new staff that we have that people perhaps aren't familiar with. We are growing our capacity, so I am hopeful that there'll be a little bit of extra time to move forward on a lot of these priorities. So, but anyway, thank you very much for putting this out. I appreciate the thought.
Good morning. I'm Mariam Broll, United's Chief Engineer, and I am going through a list of projects that we had included in the IRWM plans, and just providing a status update on those projects. And we have some more projects that are not currently on this list, so if we could go forward, I think. Can I advance this slide myself? Oh, great. Okay. So this is a list of United's projects that, as I mentioned, were included in the IRWM planning. I put this map over here because it's easier to kind of like walk through these projects in the order that I am familiar with, meaning from the north side of our service area on the border between LA and Ventura County, all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So the first project, the ASAP, or Alternative Supply Alliance Pipeline, was a concept, and we worked on that concept, provided or developed cost estimates. And because of the very expensive cost and other constraints associated with the implementation of the project, we decided to put that on hold. However, the purpose of this project was to facilitate or convey any state water project import from the Santa Fricia Dam area to the Oxnard Plain. And I'm happy to report that despite the fact that we put this project on hold, we have been successful to import state water project, whether Article 21 or through transfers and exchanges since 2017 to 2021. And we imported about 44,000 acre feet of water during this time. So moving on with the Santa Fricia Dam spillway improvement and Santa Fricia Dam outlet works, these are two components of the Santa Fricia Dam safety improvement project. I do remember that during the discussions and project selections, I presented these two projects, but unfortunately, because of the very high implementation costs associated with these projects, both were rejected. However, I am happy to report that we advanced the design, and we are currently working on the 60% design of the outlet works project and the 30% design of the spillway improvements. We have actively pursued federal grants, and we've been invited to apply for a FEMA grant that is for hazard mitigation grant funding through Cal OES. And we've also been selected for the WFIA low interest loan that is part of the EPA program. And just recently we submitted both applications. So the schedule for these projects, we are on track, and we are planning to complete the design of the outlet works in December 2023, next year, and complete the construction in 2026. And subsequent to that, we are going to start construction of the spillway improvements and planning to complete the construction of these two components by 2028. The Santa Fricia Dam sediment management, it is in the study phase. And the reason for that is to evaluate kind of like getting the loss capacity of the Lake Piru Reservoir. When the dam was built in 1955, we had a storage capacity of 100,000 acre feet. However, through siltation, sedimentation, that capacity has declined to 80,000. So we have lost approximately 20% of our storage capacity. And through this project, we are hoping that we can evaluate the feasibility of the sediment removal or control to perhaps gain that lost capacity. So the study has started. We have collected some soil samples, and we are hoping that we can, if the feasibility studies are promising and the results are showing that we could successfully remove the sediment, and granted that if we can get a permit to remove the sediments, then we're hoping that we can go into construction in 24-25 fiscal year. The Freeman Diversion Expansion Project is currently in design. I just want to make sure that people don't kind of like misunderstand the Freeman Diversion. This is not a dam. This is a diversion. A dam usually is an infrastructure or facility that impound water all year round, and that's not the case for the Freeman Diversion. So this is simply a diversion, and we use this facility when the opportunities are there. And the expansion is basically includes the different kind of like fish passage facility, and we are currently looking into 2 design approaches. The Lower Santa Clara River Invasive Species Control Project is also in design. Back in 2020, when we were releasing our conservation releases from Santa Felicia Dam, we detected potential presence of villagers at our marsh screen at Saticoy facilities. And at that point, first of all, we notified our stakeholders. And second, we had a temporary installation to add sodium hypochlorite to the water, maintain a low residual to make sure that the villagers are not going to colonize. As a result of that, we are pursuing a design and implementation of a permanent chlorine or sodium hypochlorite feed system at our moss screen. So in the event that we can detect the presence of villagers, we can basically take care of that and mitigate for that. The iron and manganese removal project was discussed. We are in construction, and as Adjourn mentioned, we are hoping that we can complete that project by January next year or perhaps sooner. And you guys know that this is a drought resiliency project, so it's basically that the timing is right, and the district started working on this project since 2014, and Robert Richardson, who's also in the room, has pursued that, and he's the main project manager for this project. And at the time when we received those grants that Adjourn explained cover 67% of the total project cost, we were really excited that we could finally start a construction project. The recycled water expansion, we are in design. However, the initial thought was to have a couple of connections to provide recycled water to the PTP system, which is an irrigation system, provides irrigation water for farmers around the PTP system. And because of the necessity of having recycled water provided to our stakeholders, which would basically mitigate and reduce the extraction from our lower aquifer system, that in turn actually combat the seawater intrusion. This is a very important project for us. So through the SGM grant funding that we were just recently recommended for, we are in the process of doing the preliminary engineering design and evaluations. And the design is being advanced. I believe that we will have a preliminary design report later this summer. And we are going ahead with this project in full force. And the deadline for the SGM grant is to complete this project by June 2025, as I mentioned before. So this funding is supporting an intertie between the PTP system and the Pleasant Valley County Water District, and there would be two sources to provide recycled water to the PTP system, either through the city of Oxnard or through the Conejo Creek. And again, when I was presenting at the Board of Supervisors board meeting last week, we were talking about short-term projects that could kind of relieve us during this prolonged drought, and implementation of recycled water projects is one of them. We are basically looking at it. So we are hoping that through collaborations that we talked about and we mentioned, we can get this project up and running. The last project is the Anacapa project. Again, that project was evaluated internally at United. We also published a feasibility study that basically included the results. However, because this is a sort of wet season or wet years project, we decided to put that on hold given the current conditions. So I know that the list for United to talk about is a little longer. There are 3 more projects that I could have talked about, but we talked about the watershed wide Arondo removal, so I kind of like left that out. And the state water project interconnection project, which is a multi-agency project, is currently in design. It's being led by the city of Ventura or Ventura Water. And currently we are working on a couple of items. First, to kind of like advance the hydraulic model of this project through the acquisition of easements for the project, and also a draft agreement between 4 agencies. United is one of the agencies. Callegas and Casitas are also involved. So this is like a working in progress, but perhaps it has taken longer than what we anticipated. But once we kind of like jump through those hurdles, it is a great project that could benefit several agencies. And lastly is United Callegas reliability enhancement. I haven't personally been involved with that project, but Callegas just recently published their very long, several years kind of like study that talks about or discusses or provides a list of proposed projects. And I expect that United and Callegas continue discussing potential projects that would benefit both agencies and the region. So with that, I conclude my presentation. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Well, thank you very much. And I really do appreciate the presentation at the Board of Supervisors on May 10th. I would like to advertise or remind people that you can go back on May 10th. It was item 30 at 9 o'clock. And we had a wonderful presentation on the status of water resources in Ventura County. And the presentation came, we had Callegas Water, County of Ventura, we had United Water and Casitas Water do presentations. And if you go to the ventura.org website for the BOS meetings, you can also get our handout material and all the presentations on projects. So I wanted to make sure you know that that's readily available as well. So thank you. Are there any questions for any of these 2 lists of very long projects, which is fabulous? Seeing none or hearing none. Laura, is there any other items we need to update on the IRWM projects?
No, I just want to say, I think that what I'd like to do is for, the next meeting or next couple meetings, also invite the other project proponents that submitted projects to the IRWM plan back in, is that like 2019? To give similar status updates on that list. I could share that list with you guys right now. Even I think I've put in an email. It's Appendix N in the IRWM plan. You can find on WCVC's website, and I've been sending links to it, but I could share it. But it's there's a spreadsheet too that has both a short description of each project and a longer description that was submitted. It lists the project partners, if it's a concept project or not, and if there is already a cost estimate at the time, that's listed in there as well for those that are interested. And what we're going to be asking is to update those projects. So not just, a verbal update here, which I think is kind of, it's helpful to see what were our projects a few years ago that we wanted to submit and where are we at with them now? But also we need to update in writing those projects and add any new ones. And Lynn will be helping us, we'll be sharing information on a form to do that probably pretty soon. And that'll be, then our new list of projects that we'll look at. And then there will be a call for when we're applying for round 2, it's kind of, there'll be a call for projects that we think are ready and want to be considered for that funding. So it's both be asking for projects to just be added to the plan. They could be conceptual. They don't have to be shovel ready. And then also, or they might be seeking funding through other grants. And then we will also ask for making sure that we're asked for projects that do want to apply for round 2 IRWM implementation funding. I hope that makes sense. Most everybody here has been through this process before, but I want to make sure. So it's kind of 2 solicitations at once. And so, yeah, we'll be asking for updates on that project list from project proponents and asking also to start filling out those forms when they're available. Lynn, do you want to say anything about the project portal and the form for this round?
So, yeah, we've been working on, we have our GIS portal that has a project input form on it now. And we've been waiting for the PSP to come out. We've been waiting to finish the DACI, the TAPT process, because they also have a project form. We're trying to do our best to kind of integrate those and to learn from what the Cal State folks did, which is a really valuable tool for us. So now we need to make sure that our own web portal is ready to accept all the projects. And so I'm working right now with our our GIS team at the county on that, and we'll engage the steering committee in sort of kicking all of this off. So for the July meeting, so I think to get to, by July, we'll be ready to have some discussion about this. You'll get information ahead of that, but we're definitely want to do that in July, and we may need to have a few more meetings than we normally would have during that time period for the Watershed Committee.
Yes.
So Laura, did you want to?
Yes. On that note, about potentially having a couple more meetings. We've been meeting every other month, which would put the next meeting at July and then September, end of September. But in light of having the PSP out and wanting to get our projects kind of submitted, so we're aware of what we have as options and start discussing those. We might need to add another meeting in there. Unfortunately, it's around summer, which I know, August is not typically a month that we get a full participation. So, but I think that's something we'll need to consider. I also want to let you know that July would likely, or August would be probably the last month that I'll be able to participate for a while, since I will be going on maternity leave in early September and probably won't be back till after the holidays. So it's like, this happened to me last time with my first child, the timing, we kept waiting for the PSP and thinking we'd get through all the project selection, and then it got delayed to the point where I think I also had to bow out right at the submittal point. So just letting you all know that we might be scheduling another meeting potentially in August. And something, I guess we'll talk with the committee co-chairs more about, and Lynn. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that?
I think we don't want to wait till August, so we want to keep moving. So I think we have to meet when we have to meet,
Yeah.
and probably the earlier getting this
Well,
going, the better.
On that note, we could try to meet in June and July, so next month. So the fourth Thursday in June, which would be the 23rd, or there's actually a fifth Thursday in June, which is unusual. So there's the 30th as well. So the 23rd or potentially the 30th, we might fit a meeting in there. And that would be.
That would be good. That would be good. I would suggest the 30th.
Okay. So one option for the 30th, and we'll check with co-chairs and Lynn and start hopefully, so everybody maybe pencil that in now, the 30th. And that meeting, I think that would be a great time then for Lynn. We could show the portal and the form. We can give a kind of a more information about the PSP. If there's a funding allocate agreement already in place, then with the upper watershed and GLAC region, we'll have that, I think, squared away by then. And we can continue with some updates on projects that were submitted in the first or the last update on the IRWM plan. So I think, yeah, that could work out well. We've also talked about having a joint upper and lower watershed meeting. So that's something I'm still talking to Rick Veragutz about with the Upper Santa Clara Regional Water Management Group. I think that if we're going to fit a meeting in next month, we probably keep that mostly, targeted out as a lower watershed meeting for the purposes of the round 2 discussions and IRWM plan.
So yeah, we'll need to convene a steering committee meeting, probably a general membership meeting, and then all the watersheds need to get busy. So yeah, we're going to have a few more meetings on the books for the next couple of months. But we, if the application deadline and we're just talking about IRWM, there's other grants, but the application deadline of February 1st, we need to give our consultant team, plenty of time to do that work. And so, yeah, we probably need to be wrapped up and ready to submit the application, by the first of the year. The good news is that they have streamlined the process significantly. And with this non-competitive approach that we're going to be taking, it's even more streamlined. So that's good news.
Right. And I really appreciate the forethought of planning and setting those meetings on our calendars. I know we have a lot of people here, and that it's very helpful for us to align together on those meetings. So thank you, and let us know how the surveys go and get it together.
And I imagine there will still be meetings between September and February. So when I say I won't be participating, don't think that there won't be meetings as well. So.
Oh, darn. No, I'm joking. You will be missed. Okay, so moving on to committee member updates and announcements. Wanted to open this up. I know we only have 2 minutes to 11:30, so some people will have to bounce off. But if there is any updates that any committee members would like to do, this is your time. Either you can put it in your chat or raise your hand or just go ahead.
I just wanted to give a plug to the AWA symposium that's next Thursday. We have a speaker from Met on how the heck did we get here with water supply problems. Got a speaker from Oxnard and Ventura on the things that they're doing, as well as our new Ag Commissioner, Maureen McGuire. Have a panel of GMs or pinch hitters talking about projects and obstacles to cooperation. That should be a fun one. And then Dan Walters to talk about state function or dysfunction or issues on that. So if anybody has any good questions for speakers, to get good controversial conversations started and put people on the spot, then I will receive those over the next day and try to pass those along. But trying to get towards breaking down obstacles and getting projects done.
Okay, anyone else? I would just like to remind people, Lynn just sent out a great email with so many links and connections to some meetings. Also, we just had the map, Lynn, if you, in regards to water, the GIS for all the connections of water. I thought that was great. There's a meeting on May 26th.
Oh.
Am I correct?
Are you
Do you know what I'm
talking
talking
about the
about?
county GIS? I forget what they call that meeting. but
Yes.
Yes.
There's a meeting on the 26th that talks about water, and maybe if I could just ask you to send it out to the group one more time, just to remind as we get closer.
Okay,
Our
now I'm-
office is good to know, like Region 1, Region 2.
Okay, now I'm confused, Kelly. Maybe we can
Oh,
talk
sorry.
about that. How
I'll talk about it later and then we can send it out. How about that? I'm just trying to find it and I can't find it.
Okay, thank you. I'm not exactly sure. I thought I knew what you were talking about, but I don't think I do. So
No worries.
I'll be sending a reminder about this today as well, but for those that have been participating in the invasive weed task force, we do have a meeting tomorrow in person at the Santa Operations Yard, just to get together and share some updates. There's been a lot of smaller group conversations and progress. I know Tom and both Jamie also shared some information today on some of the work that's been going on with invasive weed partners. And we'll be talking some about next steps. And there's been a real interest from those that have been involved in invasive weed removal, fire resiliency, and habitat restoration and public access to see some more momentum gained towards, removing arundo and restoration and envisioning Santa Clara River watershed as also recreation access. So there's been a lot of conversations about that. And I think that's something we're going to start maybe bringing more forward and hearing more about in the larger group. But if you're interested in participating and hearing that conversation, that's at the invasive weed task force meeting tomorrow. We're looking for some large scale funding to really make headway on this idea of watershed wide arundo removal and progress. And there's a lot of opportunity in the Santa Clara River watershed with such a beautiful, river system we have, and the location of it adjacent to our communities and open space. So I think we'll be talking more about that.
Okay. Actually, I just found it. It's the information from the Internet of Water regarding provisional national map display of the water service area boundaries. And so it's a new GSI mapping that might be helpful to our nonprofits, to all of our members here today, so that when we're connecting with people, we can see where the flow is and so forth. And Lynn, I think that was an email for May 26th at 11 o'clock.
Sorry. I sent out so many notices, I didn't remember that one, but yes, the Internet of Water, new national boundaries, which I think is really especially important for our underserved community identification. And so I've made sure that our DACI folks especially are aware of that so they can track it.
Thank you. All right, are there any other updates? We are doing really good. Okay, well, thank you so much, and look out for the emails. There's a lot of information coming out and it's moving fast to get those grants and projects. So really appreciate everyone's time and effort here today. And with that, I believe I'll adjourn the meeting. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the invitation to speak. Bye.
Thank you, Jamie.
It's good to see you, Lynn. I haven't seen you in so long.